Hi, this is Kazu. I'm a member of Blonde Redhead. You're listening to LSQ.
I guess it would have been 1994 that I first heard and became captivated by the music of Blonde Redhead and this amazing singular sound of theirs with all of its beauty and noise. That was via a song called Jetstar on their second ever single, which came out in 94 on Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth's excellent Smells Like records. And I've loved their albums ever since. So it was an honor to get to interview Kazu Makino from Blonde Redhead for episode 95 of the LSQ podcast. Hey, it's me, Jenny LSQ. Thanks for pressing play. And this episode arrives on the occasion of the first new Blonde Redhead album in 9 years, their fantastic new one, Sit Down for Dinner, which is out September 29th. So we talk about the band coming back together to make this album and what inspired that, as well as digging into Kazu's earlier experiences discovering her own creativity. Let's get into it.
Hi,
Hi.
how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
So good to see you.
Likewise,
Where are you right now?
I'm in Paris, at my friend's house.
One significant aspect of this conversation and of the new Blonde Redhead album is that it has been a while in between Blonde Redhead albums, and you had your solo album come out a few years ago, so that was out in the world doing the music thing. But it's been almost a decade between doing the full thing for Blonde Redhead. Tell me a little bit about just kind of why the span in between albums and what ignited getting back into it again.
Well, I feel like I'm sort of lacking sense of time. So I'm doing things at my own good pace, but it seems it's quite slow for average person, you know? You know how we at the beginning we were almost banging out records, putting out records like every year, every 2 years or something, yeah. And then our sort of like kind of musical crisis hit after 23 in just purely commercial sense, because I think we still did our best to, we try to project what we're going through onto the album. But you know, it's almost like we drifted away from public, it seemed. You know what, it might be we made a really terrible album also, I don't know. But we still play those songs from like certain albums that it didn't do very well. And I suppose like we could have been totally discouraged and stopped doing it. But I think what happened was I went away. I was quite sick. Um, I always have like asthma and things like that. But anyhow, I went away and I was really, really inspired. And I thought in my head, you know what? I could just make 1/3 of the income and I should still be able to make livelihood. Then, my bar is not that high. So I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna make an album on my own here because I was all alone, quite far away from the twins. And I did that, and I had really a blast, which I think it gave me kind of renewed strength to keep going. Also, the fact that I stepped away completely made me, yeah, it just gave me a lot of boost, self-awareness and just confident in my ability to make music. Because I used to fear that I'd be able to make music only with the twins. That was my sort of suspicion or fear. But then it wasn't. I had actually really good time working with other musicians. Of course, they were quite amazing. So yeah, and then I tour with them, and just I'm still like really close friends with my solo band, and they become sort of like another family for me. But then when I came back, Amadeo was pretty quite ahead with his songs, and then of course he's like a really major songwriting partner for me. So we started working together as pandemic brought me back into New York City. And then yeah, we spent under the same roof for like 3, 4 months. And then yeah, we had another album like that.
Did you feel like going into it more a different kind of confidence coming out of
Yeah.
the solo album? Like what was different about it this time for the first time?
I was like telling Emilio, look, it doesn't have to be painful. Like we don't have to suffer through this. We can actually try to have a good time. Like, so that was different because we used to, I mean, for good reasons, but I used to cry all the time. I used to cry every other practice because I was so unable. I'm not, and I had to really learn how to play music, how to sing, and how to write music as the band was already existing and performing. And, I kind of learned it after the band started. So yeah, like this was really something I told Amy like, look, it really doesn't have to be painful. Let's try. But then also like I was like, I'm putting my foot down. I'm not giving up sort of like until I have enough. I used to just write and walk away and then sort of let them take over, but then I didn't do that so much on this record.
Yeah, because it sounds it's
Because
sorry.
no, I'm sorry. Because we have such a different style, me and Ame. And Amelio goes for it, like just layers and layers and layers. And I like to keep space in music, and so I think there is something we always did that, but still on this album, it's quite clear the contrast between his songs and my songs in that sense.
I mean, it sounds like you were kind of grappling with underestimating your skill set for a long time.
I'm
Because
still,
yeah.
yeah. But I think it's one of those. I'm one of those artists that propels out of insecurity. Maybe you know.
Well, tell me a bit about when you first, as a kid, started to feel kind of the artist in you emerging and what that first felt like. Like when did like art or culture things first really hit you as like, oh shit.
I mean, Japan is a very cultural place to grow up, especially where I grew up, Kyoto and Nara. It's like it's just everything is sort of a craft and art. And then my parents, they shouldn't have done that if they didn't want me to be a musician, but they really gave me every opportunity to learn all the things, from piano to violin to tea ceremony to flower arrangement to just the only thing I think I didn't learn was like ballet, and everything else I kind of did.
Your parents were creative people as well?
No, I mean not by occupation. I mean yes, they are quite out there, of course. Yeah, actually they make me look conservative compared to them. It's kind of really, really extreme people, but I think it was never a like clear transition, like saying like to myself, I'm an artist. I was always the way I am from day one, I think. Yeah, weird, spaced out, like you don't know, you know, if people still say that, but like they don't know what I'm thinking. Like, what are you thinking? I've just been like that always.
But you did gravitate toward music as a kid.
Mm.
What was your first obsession with music?
Well, my father was obsessed with the music. There was a constant soft volume of classical music in my house. Like he would have felt uncomfortable if there was no music. So there's constant classical music going on in the house. And even my alarm was like Bach. That was just my air. So and then I don't want to bore you, but my grandfather was violinist as well. So yeah, I suppose I sort of have the background.
And you mentioned that there were piano lessons and everything. So was that the first instrument you really delved into?
Yeah, I really disliked my piano teacher intensely. She was really mean. I didn't, and I went through a few of them, but it's still, I think I'm a little OCD. So like I remember like I couldn't stop doing some things when I started to play. I would just loop. I would be on the loop, and somebody I have to like take me away, like, okay, enough. I'm a little bit still like that. On the way from Japan to Paris, I watched one film. I liked it. I watched, it's like 14 hours trip. I watched it for like 5 times.
I can relate
Same
to
thing.
that. I can relate to that. I would imagine too that once you started to feel inspired to, songwriting, even the earliest versions of just like a melody or a whatever, that repetitive behavior actually helps, right? It helps you to remember the idea. It helps you to keep testing the idea over and over again. Is that a feature of your songwriting as well, that kind of repetition?
Yeah, I used to say like it has to be good enough as a repetition. I just always believe that answer was in there. If that certain repetition sounded compelling on and on and on, then you have a song there. I kind of feel like that still.
What was some of the music that you on your own chose to listen to repeatedly as a kid? Because obviously the classical music was always playing, but what were the things you discovered when you finally, were old enough to go explore and check out other records?
Course, I got kind of brainwashed by classical music, especially Bach, because my father loved him so much, and Mozart. But then I craved something the very opposite, no? It turned out like, it was first like Rolling Stones and things like that. But in the end, what I was really drawn to is like blues and, soul and things like that. And then somehow those two elements always comes out to me. Like everything I sing, I think it's blues based, or the things I do. Yeah.
And when did you actually start writing songs? Were you still a kid or?
No, with Ame, I really just started. In the beginning, there's a sort of really old documentary that I don't know if it's been released or not, but somebody made it, and I always kind of resisted to be seen, so I never gave an approval for it to be viewed. But I watched it recently, and I realized how really like beginning of a career. It was already the second or third album. I mean, there was really like exploding with ideas and songs. So his early songs are really strong, and the mine, I can't even call it really mine because I think he helped so much. I mean, even today he helps me a lot. But I think I was already, I didn't know this was a part of the songwriting, but I was already having my own thing from second album, I think. It's such a, like, I think the song is called Rocks Off. It's just a blues. It's just a bluesy song.
One of my favorite Blonde Redhead songs.
Yeah, like I think that's blues. I think you could call it that. I think that's some I don't think that's something I took it from Ame or anyone else, but that I think that really comes from me, meaning based on my influence and my foundations. So that's I think I was already starting to write songs. But then when I really felt like, oh, okay, I have some muscle in this. I suppose misery is like the one I try to really explore my sort of ego or something.
How does your songwriting process kind of begin at this point? Like, what does it start with a feeling or does it start with setting aside the time? Tell me a bit about that.
It often comes from old songs, kind of reaction to the old songs, or we were just simply rehearsing old songs to play on tour. And then those like practicing for the tours or sound checks, those are the moment that it kind of pops up like ideas. It's a little bit of a contorted version of older songs. It's either like reactionary because you're so sick of playing that songs on tour, or so it's often sort of like mirror, or how do you say, opposite image of the last album, I find.
So when you're, feeling kind of a spark of an idea, where do you usually go with that? Do you go lay your hands on a piano or do you
Well, yeah, we try to work on music part a lot until, like we were saying, about repetition. So we will like work out the what's good enough repetition and sort of make a loop, and then at that point I start putting melody and words, and then after that, like we start arranging because melody gives a story, part A, part B, part C, even as a story, and then to that we start like producing songs.
when it comes to the lyrics, is that how do you think your lyric writing process has changed or evolved? Do you feel like you have sort of a technique for lyrics?
I'm less inhibited now. Like I used to like not wanting to talk about, yet I was already doing that, like personal stuff or like just what's in my head. I don't really like give it a really good rational. Whatever pops out, I accept it as is. It's really strange because it's so subliminal, subconscious. So, like, I don't even know why I'm remembering this, but like, some overheard conversation of strangers that could become a song, and something like that. But mostly my approach is like the music is already giving so much feelings that I know what should be about. Because the music alone, it sounds like this is a conversational piece, or it sounds like this is she's not having what she really wants, or it just sounds like it's full of regrets or whatever. I almost get sort of a visual sense. Like I see things, and so I kind of match to the characters that I'm seeing. Yeah, it's quite visual actually.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the video for the dress as an example of just like where it kind of becomes inseparable at a certain point. The scenes of the people crying and the song itself, it was like such a beautiful example of where you're just like, I don't even know how to separate the threads of what's fucking me up from this song and video, you know?
That's amazing. It's really cool. Yeah, no, I think music is so visual, no? Like it's such a you see them somehow, even though it is invisible, but I see things, when I hear. I'm sure everybody does see things from music, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Even if you don't know that that's what it is,
Yeah, yeah.
there's an implied world that
Mm.
when you're enjoying it. And I feel like maybe, I also do have OCD, so I can relate to, as I said, the repetition thing. But, I think there's something with films as well, where if you can tap into an entire world. I watched a documentary about Brooke Shields this week, which is really a beautiful documentary. And ever since then,
Oh,
I
wow.
keep having characters from the Brooke Shields documentary like popping up in various scenarios when and like a random thought, which is like I'm like I really liked that documentary because I'm like walking around in it in like a back part of my brain.
Oh, I need to see that.
Yeah, it's great. But I was going to ask,
Mm.
yeah, as a performer, and when you first started performing with Blonde Redhead, like did you feel stage fright at first? And how did you kind of, or did it always kind of come naturally to you? How have you evolved as a performer, and what's some of your inspiration on stage, or the feeling you're tapping into there?
I don't know. Like we don't talk to the audience. I'm not like entertainer. I mean, I could be super goofy, and if anybody talks, it's me, and I don't know why, but everybody's always laughing. Amadeo, especially, he's like cracking up of anything I say on stage. But it's a dangerous game. When I talk to the audience, I often make a mistake after that. I think I need to feel like there's no one. Not, of course, there are people, and then I get plenty of energy from audience, but I cannot actually think that they're there, listening. I mean, even I cannot even be aware of my own body. The most successful moment show for me is that I don't even feel like I'm singing or I'm playing, but it's just happening all around me. That's sort of the feeling. I actually literally think to myself, I kind of have this like urge to stop singing just because I feel like the voice will keep going. I think it's a microphone that's singing. It's really weird. I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's how I feel.
It sounds like meditation, kind of, in a way, where you're just like, you've lost track of your body, you've lost track of time.
Yeah, there's no effort in it, and it doesn't happen all the time. I wish it did, but yeah, it happens when you are on tour. And I think I really don't like one-off shows because that's hard to happen. For that to happen, it's quite rare on one-off show. But when you're on this grueling schedule and it gives it to you when you're like just yeah, it really feels like it's not me who's playing, somebody else.
Do you remember any recent performances that were that special?
Yeah, I think happened. I mean, last time I remember, I think it was like a Paris show. I think I have quite good luck in Paris. I often feel like that. And then on the other hand, quite often happens when you're like in total like squat type. This is so like agitating kind of environment. We often have like the best shows.
Who are some of the performers who kind of inspire you or whose energy on stage, really strikes you?
These are the kind of questions that's most difficult for me.
I mean, even just thinking about like some of the collaborators you've had over the years, if you want to talk a bit about just sort of like whether it's Unwound or Fugazi or some of these artists that are contemporaries and who I know you love sort of permanently.
Yeah, yeah. No, and when they really were somewhere else, really out there. I love, yeah, Fugazi too. I mean, he has like out of body experiences on a regular basis. I love Serge Gainsbourg so much. Of course, I think Ryuichi Sakamoto must be the ones that I really have no control over my emotions. Like when I saw him at the Armory when he put out a Think album, I went to both nights and I was just like sobbing the whole night. It just moved me so much. And it's weird because I haven't even heard the album. And the first note he started playing, I was already like, oh my God, no. And really a serious identity crisis to follow and all that. But yeah, he's got to be the one for me.
You're saying you had an identity crisis after that show?
Yeah, after seeing Luch's, I couldn't write anymore. I was still like working on solo album, and then yeah, and he was helping me actually. But so we were kind of working on music at the same time, but he finished it much faster and then put it out much faster. But still, yeah, I had a really hard time um taking myself seriously, and I actually had to like call him and say, "Oh my God, you really done a number on me. Like I just can't work on music anymore. It shook me so deeply." And he was really kind because then he sent me some links of music that he feels like paralyzed afterwards listening to it. So he gave me some like I have mine too.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I mean, I guess that's something that can happen sometimes. It's a phenomena. And if it happens again, then you know what it is. It's that thing that just stops you for a minute, because I guess I'm just wondering as we near, the end of this, like, do you feel now at this moment like you are past the identity crisis? Do you feel like you know who you are as an artist at this point?
No, I will always have it. Yeah. And it's probably it could easily come from like listening to some like a very young person making music for the first time too, you know. You don't know. But when you know like someone is so I think what moves me about that album he put out is just so close to who he is, the core, because he's you know, stylistically he can do anything he wants. But then this album in particular, I just felt that it was so close to who he is, how what he feels inside. And that's what like just kind of frightened me that you could somebody could actually get that close to who he is and what he wants, what he believes in, what he wants to hear. This is probably the music he really wants to hear, you know?
And so the fact that someone could do that is intimidating because it suggests that you should also be able to do that same kind of thing for yourself.
Well, yeah, I don't. Well, at the same time, I don't even know I even have that kind of deep core in myself. I feel like I am so empty compared to him, you know. But then the fact that I can hear it at least is a blessing, you know. Let's be, how do you say, realistic. I don't think at this point, I don't think anyone's gonna do something that hasn't been done. I think there are plenty of combination that feels so fresh today. I think that's always gonna happen. You know, it's like fresh version or very original personal version. It's just this combination has never been done. I think that's possible. But at this point, make music that nobody ever heard of. I don't think that's possible really. Not impossible, but it's very unlikely to me, you know?
But it still feels new because of the human element,
Fresh, yeah.
a different human doing it, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we already gone through the history of like somebody making a hole into the stick and then making another hole so they get a different key or you know, we painted that history, you know, from that to now. In that sense, I'm not sure, you know.
I just want to describe that during the time that we've been having this conversation, the sun has completely set in the room where you are. And so I feel like metaphorically that
Ah,
does bring us to the close. Oh, there it is, the light.
am I like sitting in the dark? I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's all
Um,
right. It was interesting to see actual time visually change. But yeah, I think that does us good for now, Kazu. Thank you so much for getting together to do this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Kazu for that awesome conversation, and thank you again for listening to episode 95 of the LSQ podcast. Blonde Redhead have a North American tour starting on the West Coast October 12th, and their website is blonde-redhead.com for info and tickets, etc. And to find me online, jennylsq.com and at jennylsq on social platforms. I'd love to hear from you. The next episode is with Molly from Always, followed by Jason Isbell later in October. Looking forward to sharing those as well. I'll talk to you next time.